Welcome to the deep dive. If you're looking for that shortcut to being instantly well-informed, well, you're in the right place. Today, we are taking a really fascinating look at the engine that drives your immediate perceptions. We're talking about thinking without thinking.
We are. We're diving deep into the framework from Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink. And our mission today is to explore this paradox at the heart of it all.
Which is,
How our minds can be so brilliantly lightning fast with judgments, but also how that same machinery can be, so easily derailed.
exactly. We all talk about gut feelings, but this is something a bit more systematic. We're going to be focusing on what Gladwell calls thin slicing,
Right.
which is this ability of our unconscious mind to find these incredibly powerful predictive patterns in just seconds from like the smallest sliver of information.
And the mechanism behind all this is something called the adaptive unconscious. Now, we should probably clarify, this is not that dark, murky Freudian concept.
No, not at all.
It's much better to think of it as a massive high-speed computer just running quietly in the background of your mind. It processes data constantly, way faster than you consciously can.
It's the reason you can, swerve to avoid a car that's merging without having to consciously sit there and calculate the speed and the distance first. It's that internal apparatus that's key.
Right, it's for survival. We really need to understand this engine of quick judgment, its speed, its power, and maybe most importantly, its vulnerabilities.
So, if you are as curious as we are about the secret processes of your own mind, please take a quick second to subscribe to the deep dive. Give this deep dive a like, and maybe share it with someone who lives a good aha moment about human behavior. Let's get into it. Okay, let's start with just how startlingly accurate this thin slicing can be. One of the most famous examples from the sources is from the art world. It's the story of the Getty Koros statue.
Right, so this was a supposedly ancient Greek marble statue that the museum bought for millions of dollars.
And all the science backed it up, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. All the scientific evidence, the radiocarbon dating, the chemical analysis of the marble, it all pretty much supported the idea that it was authentic. But when certain seasoned art experts were brought in, they had this immediate, this profound and totally non-rational certainty that it was a fake.
This part is just wild to me. You have objective science on one side saying yes, and then you have this expert gut on the other side screaming no.
And they couldn't even explain why at first. Thomas Hoving, former director of the Met, he described feeling an intuitive repulsion. He said the 2,000-year-old marble just felt fresh.
Fresh. What a weird word for it.
Exactly. They were using fast and frugal thinking. Their adaptive unconscious had processed, countless genuine ancient statues over the years. It spotted a dissonance that their conscious minds couldn't quite, put into words yet.
So the internal computer, once it's trained on decades of experience, it can spot the one wrong note, even when everything else in the song is perfect.
And it's the same principle in human relationships. Just look at the incredible research by psychologist John Gottman on marriage.
Oh, this stuff is amazing.
By watching a married couple talk for just 1 hour, his team can predict with 95% accuracy whether they will still be together 15 years later.
Wait, 95% from 1 hour? That almost feels like it should take months of therapy to figure out.
I know, and it gets even more focused, that accuracy. It only drops to about 90% if he watches them for 15 minutes. Some of his colleagues even say they can get pretty good predictive power after just 3 minutes.
3 minutes? So how does that even work? What are they looking for?
Well, it's not about tallying words. Gottman argues that every marriage has this distinctive, consistent pattern. He calls it a relationship's unique signature, or its fist.
Like a fingerprint.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like old Morse code operators. Even with perfect technique, each one had a unique sending style, their fist. That pattern is always there, and it shows up almost immediately in any real interaction.
And the genius here is defining that pattern, which comes down to a really crucial ratio.
The 5-to-1 ratio. For a marriage to survive, the interaction has to have a positive to negative emotional ratio of at least 5-to-1.
5 good things for every 1 bad thing.
That's the baseline. But even inside the negative stuff, the famous 4 horsemen of, defensiveness, stonewalling, criticism, and contempt, the sources point to one as the ultimate red flag.
And that's contempt. Why is that one so much worse than, say, criticism?
Well, criticism is an attack on character, right? Like, you are always late. But contempt is different. It's a hierarchical statement.
It's a statement of superiority.
Exactly. It says, I am better than you. It's the eye rolling, the scorning, the name calling. And the emotional stress from that is so profound, it can actually predict how often the person on the receiving end gets sick. It suppresses their immune system.
Wow. So if the adaptive unconscious spots contempt, the writing's pretty much on the wall.
But that power, that ability to thin slice and focus on the one thing that truly matters, it isn't just for relationships. It's also the engine behind real life-saving professional expertise.
Right. We see this across different fields. Military historians used to have a term for it, coup d'oeil, the power of the glance.
To describe how generals like Napoleon could just instantly make sense of a chaotic battlefield long before their subordinates could even process all the data coming in.
And in nature, you see with bird watchers. They use the term GIS.
Which is short for the general impression, size, and shape, or basically the bird's essence. An expert can spot a rare species from, a huge distance, not because they see the details, but because the overall pattern, the GIS, just clicks.
And that same kind of instant recognition applies to medicine, which is kind of unnerving. Nalini Ambedi's research showed that you can predict whether a doctor will be sued for malpractice just by listening to tiny snippets of their conversations with patients.
And here's the kicker. The malpractice risk, it had almost nothing to do with the doctor's technical skills.
So what was it then?
It was almost entirely about whether the doctor communicated respect. A dismissive, dominant tone of voice, even for a few seconds, it just screamed disrespect. And that was the biggest predictor of a lawsuit.
The signature is loud and clear. But sometimes our brain latches onto the wrong signature, right? That's the dangerous part.
Absolutely. If that internal computer fixates on a superficial, totally irrelevant cue, the judgment becomes a catastrophe. The classic example is the Warren Harding error.
Warren Harding,
Okay.
often ranked as one of the worst U.S. presidents in history.
Yeah.
And he got the job not because of his genius, but because in a deadlocked convention, the party bosses picked him because he looked just like a presidential candidate.
They were just seduced by his looks, his Roman features, his resonant voice. They thin-sliced based on pure charisma, and they let that one superficial cue just drown out all the evidence that he was, completely unfit for the job.
And that mistake, latching onto appearance, is exactly what the implicit association test, or the IAT, is so good at revealing as unconscious bias.
Yeah, the IAT shows that even people who are consciously, committed to equality, they often have stronger unconscious links between, say, maleness and career concepts than femaleness and career concepts. We just absorb these stereotypes.
And this isn't just theoretical. It has real-world consequences. The sources talk about a study on car salesmen who made snap judgments about their customers.
Right. Salesmen would often view black or female customers as lay-down suckers who'd pay the sticker price. And the study found that based on that unconscious reaction, black men were quoted prices almost $800 higher than white men.
They're just repeating the Warren Harding error, making a big decision based on a damaging, racialized first impression.
And it's so easy to manipulate that hidden machinery. This gets us to the priming effect. In one experiment, they had students do a scrambled sentence test where they subtly slipped in words related to old age. Things like lonely, wrinkle, gray.
And the students had no idea what the test was really about.
None at all. But after they finished, they walked out of the office significantly slower than they walked in. Their unconscious was primed to think old, and their body just adjusted, without them ever knowing.
Another study showed students did 13% better on Trivial Pursuit just by being primed with the idea of a professor versus a group primed with soccer hooligans.
Your unconscious takes the fastest path, and we often don't even realize we've been pushed onto it.
So this brings us to a really crucial point about information. We all think more data is better, right? But Gladwell argues that in high-stakes situations, too much information can actually be harmful.
Which sounds so counterintuitive.
It does. Why would more data hurt?
Well, look at the crisis at Cook County Hospital's ER when they were trying to diagnose heart attacks. The doctors were just overwhelmed with patient data age, diet, smoking history, cholesterol, everything.
So they were drowning in factors.
Exactly. They couldn't thin slice effectively. It led to a lot of guesswork and unnecessary admissions, which wasted time and resources.
So what was the solution?
Radical subtraction. A cardiologist named Lee Goldman created an algorithm that proved that for an acute diagnosis, doctors only needed the ECG result, plus 3 very specific risk factors.
And what were they?
Unstable angina, fluid in the lungs, and low blood pressure. That's it. His insight was that all that other stuff, age, diet, it confuses the issue in the heat of the moment. You get better, faster results by knowing less.
And this failure to find the right slice of information, it also completely ruins product testing. I mean, look, the spectacular failure of New Coke.
A textbook case. Coca-Cola tested its new, sweeter formula against Pepsi using the sip test.
Just a single sip.
Right, and in a single sip, Pepsi's sweeter, citrusy burst almost always wins. So the data said people preferred the new formula.
But they were measuring the wrong slice of time. The experience of drinking a whole can is totally different. The original Coke's flavor is less overwhelming. They analyzed a moment that didn't matter, and it almost killed their brand.
Contrast that with the Aeron office chair. When they tested prototypes, the comfort scores were through the roof, but the aesthetic scores were terrible. People called it a monstrosity.
I can kind of see that. It looked like an insect exoskeleton.
Right. But Herman Miller, the company, they trusted the comfort scores. They bet that people were just confusing different with ugly.
And they were right.
They were totally right. The aesthetic scores only shot up after the chair became accessible and familiar. Their conscious reaction was rejection. But the adaptive unconscious knew it was comfortable.
And finally, we get to maybe the biggest vulnerability of all, just questioning it. The jam tasters experiment is perfect here.
So non-expert students were asked to rate jams blind, and they were surprisingly accurate. Their ratings lined up really well with professional food tasters.
But
Then they had a second group do the same thing, but they asked them to explain their ratings, to articulate why they liked a certain jam.
and what happened?
Their choices completely fell apart. The correlation with the experts dropped to almost zero. The minute you force the conscious mind to explain the unconscious machinery, it just invents a plausible but totally wrong story. You turn the genius into an idiot by making it talk. So I think we arrive at the great lesson of this whole deep dive. The goal isn't just to trust your gut blindly. It's to understand the conditions it needs.
Right, to respect the fragility of our snap judgments and know when we need to build some structure to protect them from all that noise and bias.
Structure protects spontaneity. It's orchestras using blind screens so conductors can't listen with your eyes and be biased by a performer's gender or race. It's Thomas Hoving using a black cloth to make sure his first impression of the choros was totally unfiltered.
You protect the thin slice. You focus on the single, most relevant piece of data.
And our final provocative thought comes from a massive military exercise called the Millennium Challenge.
Ah yes, blue team versus red team. Blue team was the U.S. forces, with all the sophisticated systems designed to know everything. Red team was led by General Van Riper, who prioritized speed and intuition.
And Blue Team, in their obsession with knowing everything, they just became slow and predictable. They drowned in their own data. Van Riper, using his coup d'oeil, his power of the glance, sank 16 of their ships in the first strike.
Because knowing everything is impossible. It's like playing chess when you can't see what the other person is thinking. If you try to know it all, you become imprisoned by that idea.
So we want to ask you, if that kind of meticulous analysis can lead to being imprisoned, when should you deliberately choose speed and intuition over detailed knowledge in your own life?
And thinking back over everything we talked about today, that immediate certainty about the Getty Koros, the New Coke disaster, or the Aeron chair, which example surprised you the most about the power, or maybe the fragility, of thin slicing? And what's one immediate decision you feel you make using pure blink instinct?
We would absolutely love to hear your insights. Go ahead and share your answers in the comments below.
Thank you so much for joining this deep dive into Blink. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and share this with someone else to help them find us. We really appreciate your support.